Okay.
Okay. I'm so sorry for this technical issues. I really didn't know which
problem.
one to join. Sorry.
Don't worry. So, good afternoon, all of you. I'm so happy to be here with the next speakers. We had some technical problems because you know that this is something that may happen because obviously we are having this at this time. But don't worry about anything. We are going to start with our discussion panel, and I'm going to introduce each of you. Okay, and we are going to start. We have to be a bit brief, but anyway, everything is going to work out. And I'm going to introduce all of you. So again, good afternoon, all of you. Good afternoon, the speakers. Good afternoon, all the people, all the attendants to this session panel. And I'm going to be the moderator of this discussion panel on teacher training, teacher methodologies, and innovation. To talk about it, we have here today two very influential people that are going to talk about something from different perspective. The first person that is going to speak is going to be Mihaela Bruman. She's from the University of Maribor in Slovenia, and the other person is Pinky Jane from the University of Worcester in the UK. I'm so pleased to have them here. And I have to say that both of them are experts on different educational fields. Mihaela works on the teaching and learning of second languages, and today she's going to introduce us on the term reflective teaching. Pinky's field of expertise is related to the teaching of mathematics in schools. She will make a presentation on teacher training and teacher methodologies in the UK. I'm so happy to have you all here. And that way we will have the opportunity to know about teacher training and teaching methodologies and innovation in two different countries. One is going to be Slovenia and the other one is going to be the United Kingdom. And this is going to be approached from two different perspectives and two different fields of expertise. One is going to be second languages and the other is going to be mathematics. So the two presentations are going to answer two specific questions that I'm going to launch right now so that we gain some time as we are a bit delayed. The first one is going to be, what aspects related to teacher training do you think should be improved in your particular research areas? Both Pinky and Mihaela. And the second one is, how should those aspects be improved? That means methodologies, innovation. So how would you approach all this? In theory, we were going to have 10 minutes each, okay, but due to this technical issue, if it is a bit less, it could be very, we would appreciate that a lot, but obviously we understand that you have prepared all your presentations and everything, so feel totally free to start whenever, as soon as I finish, whenever you want. First it's going to be Mihaela, then it's going to be Pinky. Obviously, if there are comments from the attendants, don't worry, because we are going to keep all these comments and they're going to be answered by you anytime, once we finish, and we will be posting them, afterwards. So now it's time to you to answer the two questions I have just, made. And dear Mihaela, whenever you want, you can start. I know you've got a presentation. You can, share your presentation. You can share your screen, and you can start whenever you feel ready for that.
Okay. So
yes.
Buenos dias and good afternoon. I would like to share my presentation with you now.
Yes.
Okay. Let me see.
Fantastic. Yeah. So don't worry, Mihaela, in case you've got any problem, we've got the technician, behind us, that he's going to be, he's got the presentation too. Yes.
Do you see it?
Okay, very good. Excellent. Yes.
Okay,
we can see very well. Excellent. Yes.
So, yeah. So I'm going to talk about reflective practices in teacher training in Slovenia, and I will try to answer Juana's questions within my presentation. So for a better understanding, I will first provide a short insight into the teacher training in Slovenia. All members of teaching staff in the primary and secondary school in Slovenia must hold a master's degree. Okay. Just a second. Yeah, here we are. And faculties of education in our country offer pre-service and in-service teacher training courses to future primary and secondary school teachers and also other education experts. I work at the Department of Primary Education, and students here gain knowledge in different methodologies, like as you can see here, methodology of science and languages and so on. And teacher trainers of these methodologies are currently making considerable effort to use different innovative strategies that challenge and engage students in their study. It means that students actively seek knowledge and don't just sit and receive the knowledge from a lecture or worksheet. So the university and our National Agency of Education have organized several trainings for the university teaching staff to include student-centered learning into their teaching process, because consequently, future teachers would also engage their students in critical thinking and problem solving. But I have to say that the rapid changes and demands in our teacher training require a lot of adaptation from our teaching staff, who try to improve the preparation of students for their productive functioning in schools. It is a process because there are still some elderly teacher trainers who include a more traditional way of teaching and struggle with changing their way of teaching, so trying to include a student-centered and inquiry-based learning. So we make efforts to include inquiry-based learning and project-based learning in our teacher training because research tells us that students learn best when they construct their own knowledge. So clearly, there may be various combinations of different innovative approaches to teaching, and I will introduce one that is recently used in my country. Okay. So, according to expert opinion, we do not learn from experience without reflection. So, what is reflective teaching? Reflective teaching is a process where teachers think over their teaching practices. They analyze how something was taught and how the practice might be improved or changed for better learning outcomes. And by collecting information about what goes on in their classroom, and by analyzing and evaluating this information, teachers identify and explore their own practices. And this may then lead to changes and improvements in their teaching. So there exist different reflection strategies to encourage reflective teaching in education. Like you can see the ones here, for example, peer evaluation, reflexive learning diaries or journals, micro-teaching, then the use of video recording, self-analysis, and action research. Um, so how does this work in our practice? I'm not going, so I have actually chosen the ones that are currently used in our teaching training, and I'm not going to go into details because we don't have time for that, but I will introduce some concrete examples used by our teaching staff. So first of all, a teacher trainer provides a list of topics that you can see here, like for example, giving instructions, questioning strategies, and so on. And students choose one and try to develop questions to the topic. And then they search for up-to-date articles and resources, trying to discover theories in the topic area and use them as a background information. Then students develop a lesson plan and decide on an integrated approach to the topic, which brings together topic content knowledge students have learned during their research of the sources, plus their teaching strategies and techniques. So here students need to take into consideration the learner's interest, learning styles, teaching aids that they will use in the classrooms, and teamwork, and so on. Now, a teacher trainer provides a list of questions students need to take into consideration while developing their lesson plan. And here you can see different questions that are asked by the teacher trainer. Then discussion follows. So with the teacher trainer, he or she provides feedback on the lesson plan, and students then reflect on the comments and try to upgrade the lesson plan. And then by presenting the content to the peers and by experiencing activities and discovering teaching for themselves, students learn more effectively. And of course, in their presentations, students also include the so-called micro-teaching, which means that one trainee teaches a short in-class activity to his or her fellow trainees for about 10 minutes. Sorry. Then okay, I have to go back. Yeah. Then the reflection follows. Students reflect on how things went on during the lesson and what did not, and students are encouraged to develop awareness about teaching and about themselves as teachers. And then, of course, they upload their evidence to Moodle or to MS Teams. We work with the teams at the faculty, and so it is available to everyone to see, to reflect on it, and so on. And then teacher trainers feedback follows. So the teacher trainer provides some written comments on the quality of the students' products and the process. Now, I have provided one example here that you can see. This lesson plan was developed by one of the students. Her topic was multicultural awareness in the classroom. So first of all, she has searched some resources, and then she introduced that topic to her peers. So first of all, for example, students watched a video and tried to guess what the topic of the presentation was. Then they discussed about the question, what is multicultural education and why it matters in the classroom. Then the students were active. They tried to provide some synonyms and their own definitions of multicultural awareness, and or they also searched the web for definitions. And then the trainee teacher actually provided some theory on the topic, and she presented that to her classmates. And her classmates, her peers, listened to her feedback. Then we also tried to include some multimedia, so the students were asked to use the menti.com, and they had to provide their own ideas about positive and negative aspects of introducing multicultural awareness in the classroom. And again, the teacher trainee also provided some theory on that particular issue. Then group work followed. So students collected their ideas to this particular topic. What can teachers do to promote cultural diversity? They searched the web. They also thought about their own activities and tasks to promote cultural awareness in the classroom. And again, the teacher trainer also provided, the trainee student also provided some feedback to that particular topic. Then micro-teaching followed, which means that the teacher introduced a task how she would foster cultural awareness in the classroom by using this particular worksheet. And the other trainees actually acted as if they were like 9-year-olds, and they reacted to the teacher's input, and they also recorded that particular part. And then finally, they reflected on the topic and provided their answers. So I have provided a micro teaching, but I'm not sure whether this works, and I'm going to, I don't know. Probably you won't hear the sound. Do you hear it?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay, great.
The video, yes. Okay. Yeah.
So So her topic was actually to introduce warm-up and closure activities, and this is how how they
you do it.
did it.
Yes.
Yeah, and then finally, this is then a list of questions that the teacher trainer provides for the prior reflection, and students have to answer these questions here. And they also need to write a self report. So self-reflection, this is also the list of questions that they need to answer. And also they have to write their own diary about these sessions, and they have to discuss about the topic. So in conclusion, I would like to say that it is important to create a reflective teaching where students play an active role in constructing their own knowledge, as learning is experiential, collaborative, and they learn from the interaction with the teacher, trainer, and their own peers. However, this kind of approach puts a lot of pressure on teacher trainers because it demands a deep content knowledge and methodology. But I believe that discussion with other colleagues at the faculty can stimulate critical evaluation, share experiences, and provide support to take actions in their teaching. It also means a lot of work for teacher trainers since we work with large groups of students, and this may consequently lead to problems that supervisors do not respond promptly or professionally to student teachers' reports. And clearly, teacher training is a process which needs to consider the personalities and ways of thinking of teacher trainers and students, their modes of communication, the nature and content of the topic. And in conclusion, I would like to say that teaching is a complex task, and good teaching training is vital if we are to have good teachers in the future. So.
Okay, Mihaela, thank you. Thank you very much. Something that, I would like to, I think that your final words about your presentation have been really, the key part of your presentation. Obviously, probably there is a lot of pressure on teachers, and probably, there's a lot to do, on the teacher side. But in the end, the result is very good, and is very positive for the students and for everybody. Obviously, if we want good teachers in the future, good students in the future, is a task that corresponds to all of us that are teacher trainers at the universities. And yeah, I think that this is really, really, really important. So the students' active role is probably the key part, and also to have this kind of reflective practice is key, especially in the school of the future and in the teachers of the future. Well, with this summary, I'd like to introduce, Pinky Jane is going to talk about, a different perspective and something different, taking into account how, they're doing things in the UK. And Pinky, it's a pleasure to have you here. You can start when you feel, okay? And we are here to listen to all the things you are going to tell us, and we will appreciate a lot your contribution. So whenever you want, please.
Thank you. I hope you can see my slides. Can you see my slides? There we go. I'd like to say, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of share this practice, and I hope that we'll be able to kind of have a bit of a discussion around what we've been doing. So within the UK, I just want to share, and it was interesting listening to Michaela, that there's lots of overlap between what we do and how we practice and what they were doing over in Ukraine. So the structure of teacher education within the United Kingdom is twofold. One is an undergraduate programme which takes 3 years, and that's predominantly for primary teacher education. So primary teacher education is from 3 to 11-year-olds, so training them to teach those particular groups of children. Or the other path is postgraduate teacher education, which is a 1-year programme for both primary and secondary. So this will be teaching either 3 to 11, or you'd be training from 11 up to 18 in subject-specific areas. And the postgraduate also has within it the ability for you to train while you work in school. So we have something called a school direct. That's a school experience-based route where students work predominantly in school and have their own classes, but come to us for the theoretical understanding. And I've put in within that government intervention because that is something quite dominates how we practice teacher education within the United Kingdom. So all of our teacher education is structured under the regulatory authority of the United Kingdom government, because we are, as universities, a registered awarding body for registration as teachers. So in order to teach within the United Kingdom, you need to have and be licensed to be able to teach, and we provide that license through the program that we give. But with that comes the added, layers of what happens within the government regulation. So we sit under that kind of umbrella, really, in terms of how we practice. So one of the things that we've recognised over a number of years is that, of course, we have students coming in at the age of 18 if they're doing the undergraduate programme, or slightly older. And one of the things that the research over the number of years has said that our strong teachers have quite high metacognitive skills, and the teachers who struggle or find it challenging haven't built up those metacognitive skills as a teacher. So we've focused within University of Worcester quite significantly around how we build those metacognitive skills within our trainee teachers, so that when they leave us as fully fledged teachers, they continue to develop. And there are 7 areas which I'd like to sort of share with you and give you examples of how each of those areas have been developed really for us, and some practice. So one of the things that we consider very early on within the programme, both undergraduate and postgraduate, is that neuroscience has a really key part to play in how learning is developed. Now, obviously, as teachers, we know that how the brain works is very important in understanding how children think and work, but actually it's equally important for us to share with our trainees how our own brains and minds work in order to be able to develop those metacognitive skills. So what we do really very early on is put our teachers in situations where they become learners of knowledge. So for primary teacher education, which is where I sit, and I'm going to be using mathematics and the training of maths teachers as an exemplification to talk about some of these ideas, is that within the first few sessions, we engage children in the experiences that that our children will have. So they will be in a classroom scenario. They will find an opportunity to consider doing mathematics with the same constraints that children may have. So, for example, when we're talking about counting very early on, I deliver the session in a completely different language. And one of the reasons for doing that, delivering in a completely different language, is so that children have an experience, which is mathematics as a language, but our students also experience that cognitive conflict, if you like, when you're approaching new information. And then we talk about the neuroscience of how the brain works in terms of linking, what they already know, how they're trying to work out, how they're translating when it's a very new experience. Because we find that our primary trainees come into learning and to teaching people with a lot of knowledge, but our students. But what's really important is that they're able to feel what children feel. So they have that metacognitive awareness of, oh my word, yes, I had to think about, I had to slow down. I did not understand, when my lecturer spoke in a completely different language, what she was talking about, how would they learn? So that's quite an interesting way of thinking about how to develop that experience. And then we begin to dissect from that session how the brain works, what the sort of synaptic connections were that help them understand. And it really begins to get them to think about their own thinking, which is what metacognitive skills are really trying to do. the next thing that we wanted to work on really was this idea of students practicing recognizing their own understanding. So can I begin to point out where I don't understand something? And as a student teacher, you know, if I don't understand something and I'm not aware of it, then I have no chance of improving my practice. So again, we begin to use mathematics just as an avenue, but we do this across all subjects. We have fixed point tutorials where we will ask students to come in having developed an action plan. So they will write an action plan of what they have learned in the past few sessions and what they didn't understand and what they understood. And then we begin to have that discussion. So the discussion is probably less important in this practice. What's much more important is that students are beginning to able to articulate what they are understanding from lectures and what they are not understanding. Because what we found and what the research tells us is once they can articulate what they don't understand, then the solutions become apparent. But if they're not thinking in a mindful way what they're practicing, then it's really difficult for them to improve their practice. So we do this quite periodically. And we begin to do that very slowly, really, in the first year. And in the second year of their training, we stop those tutorials, but still expect them to begin to identify what they don't understand and what they understand, and then give an opportunity in every lecture session with their partner to share and to develop. Now, the reason for doing that sort of phase is obviously what we want is by the third year when they graduate from the undergraduate program is that they're beginning to formulate habits of discussing with their peers within school. So as colleagues are in school, you know, where I didn't quite know what I was doing in my lesson and how I can improve. And so they need to feel comfortable in saying, I do not know how to do this. And I've identified what I don't know to a colleague, to a peer, to their, you know, line manager or to their leads in school. And we find that that's a habit they need to build because they're quite shy about sharing those areas of understanding. And then by the third year, we expect that it's become a forced habit that we've kind of inculcated. So they are very aware and are beginning to recognize very quickly what they can't do and what they can do. The other is about this opportunity to reflect on theory and practice. Now, one of the things that we've really struggled with this year with the pandemic is not all students have been able to go into school as they normally would in school experience. And so what we've really tried to do is encourage schools to come into us. So we've had lots of schools offer videos of lessons, live streaming using equipment in the classroom. And then we've asked our students to take those cases and take those instances and begin to reflect theory and practice. Now, what worked, what didn't work? So I'm looking at somebody else's practice, getting into the habit, because it's much easier to kind of point out what something's not working within someone else's practice. And then they apply that to their own teaching when they go online and have been able to deliver some sessions, or if they've managed to get into school, we ask them through the reflective models that we work with to begin to work out what they might do to improve their practice and how that links with the theoretical underpinning that we do within the university session. The other thing we do is developing a learning journal. So they've got, and I know lots of people do this in lots of different shapes, but we have an electronic journal which is online, which students feed into on a regular basis while on practice, and their tutor within the university will then dip in and have a look at that online. So it's an online metacognitive conversation. So if you think about it, sort of onion skin layers, the very core of this is about this idea that they begin to think about their own thinking, and then we build those layers up of skills from year one, as I've already demonstrated, so that they are beginning to annotate this in journals and are able to then follow through what we call the metacognitive improvement cycle, which is I've noticed I don't know how to do this, I have gone and found out, and I have developed, so that I can continue to self-sustain improvement. The other thing we've used is vehicles to increase student observations and metacognition skills, which is actually thinking about individual children in the class. So we've got case studies.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, I'll speed up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. And vehicles and case studies that they use, and then unpick. Considering assessment type, so obviously students have to write essays, but we get them to present, and then also begin to mark their own assignment, to think about what grades they deserve before they go into it as a reflective exercise. And so the idea is that we're all the way through really facilitating that reflexive thinking, which is on the spot, in the minute, being able to change their practice because they notice what they have done wrong. And it's built up in layers. I'm going to stop. I've put those questions that you've asked me to focus on as a reminder as well. So I shall stop sharing now.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Pinky. Thank you very much, Mihaela. I think, both presentations have been very, very interesting, and there is something, that you had in common. At the beginning, Pinky, you said, that probably there were some overlapping between the things Mihaela had been describing and your contribution. Obviously, both of you, there is a coincidence between both of you concerning, reflexive thinking and the reflective practice that Mihaela was talking about at the beginning. So I think it's very interesting. In the end, one of the things we can say and we have to highlight about your presentations and about, the future of education is related to, make students think and make students reflect on what they are doing. But not only students, as far as I have seen, is students and teachers, the more we think, the more reflect on, obviously, the better it's going to be in the teaching practice of future teachers. So I would like to thank, you too. I would like to thank, all the attendants that have been behind us. Thank you also to Ruben, due to the technical problems, the technical issues that he's been sorting out during the presentations we had. And yes, any questions that we may receive, from now, I promise I will send them to you so that you can answer them and we can post them for the rest of the attendance. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And the key thing is reflect on all the things we do and on the teaching practice too. Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure again. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Juana.
Bye. Thank you.